This week, Sketch and I are going to talk about using a new technique for building armor using a material called Worbla.
Yeah. I've actually never heard of it until Shiva told me about it and said, hey, try it. Okay.
Well, basically what's happening is Gail and Elizabeth and I were finally making our Magic Knights costumes after years and years of planning to do it. And I actually was going to make mine out of Wonderflex because that seemed like the most common material. And when I went to go purchase some, I noticed this new stuff called Worbla. And what it is similar to Wonderflex. It's kind of a plastic-like material that comes in a sheet.
I'm not exactly sure what it is, but it works. But yeah, it's very similar to plastic. It comes in a sheet.
It's smooth on both sides.
Smooth on both sides. One side is shinier, which I found is kind of the easier side to stick stuff together. Let's see, and what's really good is just like Wonderflex, it can be cut with your regular scissors.
Yep.
It didn't take too much effort to cut out shapes or anything like that.
And then once you've cut out your shapes, you heat it up with a heat gun or some other heat source.
Yeah.
And then once you've bent it, and it cools, it retains its shape.
Yeah, and very complex shapes. I mean, the one drawback with Wonderflex is compound curves, i.e. Is a compound curve. This stuff worked perfect.
Right. So like some of the pros of it is that one, it does the complex curves, which other materials, including foam, paper mache, it's really hard to do. Wonderflex, it's really hard to do. But with this stuff, for instance, my boob armor, which is the biggest carve, we're able to make a shape slightly larger than my breast, and when you push it down, it doesn't make all those wrinkles like it would with paper mache or foam or the Wonderflex.
But incidentally, to mention a quick con is that you have to be careful. You can make it a little thin, but another pro is that you can reinforce it afterwards with scrap pieces in the back.
Right. Other good parts is that it is durable. So it's better than foam or paper mache, where if someone bangs into you, if you whack it, it's not going to change its shape. It's not going to dent or do anything like that. So it holds up a lot longer than that other material would. It's also really lightweight. Like I really don't feel like I'm wearing much right now. It's not heavy. Where something like fiberglass or, heaven forbid, Bondo that some people use for armor, which is much heavier. And so it doesn't drag down your costume. You can, glue it to other parts and it's not going to, weigh you down at all.
What's also good is that keep all your scrap, because you'd be surprised what you can use it for, even in terms of detailing or even just reinforcing. To mention, we've got a few straps here, but the quickest way is just on the inside. I just slapped on a piece of scrap on it and it just helped hold down the straps that we used. So it's a good thing to keep all your scraps.
It's also good
especially since it's kind of expensive.
Yeah, and you can use it for layering. It layers really well. All of these extra details were done using the scraps. And also, even if you use a different material, for instance, Elizabeth on hers used Wonderflex for the base, but she did her trim in the Worbla. And she was able to attach all of these without glue, without any kind of adhesive. All we did was create the trim or create the detail part, and then we heated it, and then it actually just bonded right to the base material, either the other Worbla or the Wonderflex. So you didn't have to use any adhesive, and then now it's not coming off of there.
But incidentally, like for here in the shoulder armor, this actually was a straight piece on this part, but the stuff can actually, be stretched, and wherever it would start buckle, you actually could just heat it up and press it down flat again. It's actually very nice.
The other nice thing about it is you can paint it completely without a primer. So when you use foam, you have to prime it with glue, otherwise it kind of absorbs the paint into it because it's porous. With paper mache, you usually need to do some kind of a coating. And even with Wonderflex, a lot of times one of the sides is textured, so you have to sand it before you can paint it. With this stuff, we just spray painted the base coat. So everything we spray painted blue, and then for the trim, after it dried, we just used rub and buff on it.
I like rub and buff, but I'll do another segment on that later.
The other thing that's nice about it is it's thin enough that you're able to punch through. So we just push through rivets on the sides of the corset, and then for here where we did the grommets, it was easy enough with a hole punch or a grommet puncher to go right through the material. We didn't have to do anything fancy to make that work.
No. It was very easy to use. You just sit there, go.
Yep.
Got a hole.
Some of the cons, it is expensive, but it's not that much more expensive than Wonderflex. I think it's a few bucks more for a sheet, depending on the size. So if you're going to, for the benefits you get over Wonderflex, it's worth the extra few
Just
bucks.
incidentally, what size did we get for?
We got
just
a
the armor?
large sheet, which was just enough to do all of the armor for Umi, all my boot armor, the, you know, other kind of pieces on like the arms and the headpiece. But we planned it out really well, and we ended up with a lot of scrap that we did for all the trim and everything. It is thinner than Wonderflex or foam, but you can strengthen it by overlapping. Like for this, we did overlap, or by just curving it.
Well, the curve, once you have it into a shape and it cools, it has strength inherent into it. But then when you add on the trim, it got a little bit stronger. And then on the overlap, which you really can't see on the outside, but when they overlap the front piece and the back piece, it really just became like a spine on that point and really strengthened everything up. Like on here in the shoulder, it's only just one layer here in the blue, and then the second layer is the trim, and this thing,
it's not going anywhere.
It's strong and it'll keep its shape.
But when we first did it, it did feel thin when it was still heated, but once we cooled and basically reinforced it next to everything else, it doesn't feel thin at all.
So you don't really have to sit there and double up layers of layers. You just strategically put a few extra pieces and you got some strength.
Now it does absorb the heat really well, which is a good thing, but it can get very hot to the touch when you're handling it, so you need to be careful.
Yeah.
And we found a heat gun actually works best, where I know with like Wonderflex and other material, I've used a hair dryer or I've used an oven, but this stuff you really needed the heat gun.
But in my experience with it, I did start off with a hair dryer at first, and it's good. It gets it nice, warm enough, and pliable. But the heat gun really gives you where its properties come out better. Like where, like I was saying, smoothing out an edge where a slight wrinkle happened, a heat gun makes it more pliable than that. But again, it gets hot and stays hot for a little bit. So gotta just be a little bit mindful and careful. So if you're trying to fit something like around here, make sure they're wearing at least 2 layers of tight clothing, just to be safe.
And probably the biggest con is it's new, so it is kind of hard to find.
Yeah.
Now, as far as how to use it, basically what we started out with, you want to plan your pattern first using another material. We recommend foam if you're doing armor, because you can shape it well and it has more of a thickness than, let's say, paper would. So what we did, we drew all our shapes and cut them out of foam. The next thing we did is we unrolled our sheet of Worbla and spread it out on the ground, and we traced all of our foam shapes onto the Worbla. We used the back side, so the shiny side we put down, and we, on the wrong side of the Worbla, we traced all of the shapes and labeled them, because once you cut them out, you don't know what's what.
Yeah.
And we even put arrows for the directions, like this was up, this was down. Once we labeled all the pieces, we cut them all out with scissors, and then we heated each piece with the heat gun, and then we bent them to the shape. And we made sure, again, we did not touch my bare skin for any of this. We made sure we were wearing tight-fitting clothing, and then shape that around it so you're not burning yourself or getting melted plastic stuck to you, which would be a nightmare. Then once the shape is correct, we allowed it to cool and harden. And then we connected the pieces together using, in some cases, glue or rivets. Like for example here, for the corset, we glued the 2 pieces together and then we riveted it to make extra strength.
Yep.
And also, this looks nice. And then once we did the trim or layered details, but with the scrap, and once everything was cooled, we then did the base coat of spray paint and then did the trim and rub and buff. Basically, we were going for more of a battle-worn look with this armor, so it is kind of, you know, a little beat up. It's not shiny, it's not reflective. But if you wanted to, we could have sanded this more and done like a gloss coat on it, and to get some of the armor that is kind of very shiny, cartoony looking.
Well, it depends on what you're going for, but I think in the photos it added a little more character to it.
Yep. And then we did glue it to the vinyl strapping, and then we showed we reinforced everything with the Worbla, so nothing was going to come apart. We didn't have to rely on a glue adhesive to keep everything together. So basically, that's pretty much it. And I really encourage everyone to experiment with it. If you used it, get in touch with us. We'd love to hear about your experiences with it. You can post on Twitter, Facebook. You can leave us a voicemail. The other thing I want to mention is it is difficult to find, but one of the places we had experience with that we really like is cosplaysupplies.com. I've gotten Wonderflex there before and other materials. They have free shipping on everything. They're really fast. The one thing you want to make sure is that you check that your item's in stock before you order it. And if actually they're not in stock, I've gone to their Facebook page and messaged them and asked them when will it be back, and they'll send you a message when they have it back in stock. So they're really great. So we definitely recommend cosplaysupplies.com.
So subscribe to us on our usual subscription pages of iTunes and YouTube. And remember to always call us at 762-ADEQUATE, 762-233-7828. And obviously go to our forums or email us or anything. We love feedback. All right, see you next week.